So this is kind of a test video, I guess. Um, it occurred to me that a lot of the food that I eat every day um, might be kind of strange to people in the West. So I thought I would make a food blog or food vlog, I guess. Sort of show some of the kinds of foods that people in China eat. Um, I mean, I'm not exactly a typical Chinese person, so my diet isn't uh, exactly the typical Chinese diet, but I eat a lot of different Chinese foods. Um, and I thought I'd sort of show off the what some of that stuff is. Um, so right now I'm eating breakfast. So this is like fairly common breakfast food. Um, it could be also a lunch food. Um, I don't think people eat this that often for dinner, but I'm having a thing called a Lu Shao. So Lu ro means meat, and Lu is donkey. So this is donkey meat, and Huoshao is like a type of bun. So like you can see, this is like a bread thing with like some meat in it, and inside it's got basically some meat and some veggies chopped up. This one I've never eaten from this restaurant before. This one has some green peppers in it, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it's not too many of them. So I've got kind of a crunchy outside skin, and donkey meat is kind of mm, it's got a texture similar to beef or lamb. Very kind of it's a red meat. It cooks up pretty similar to beef, but has a very unique flavor. Um, I quite like it. So then the other food that I'm having now is a type of soup called jidantang. Jidan, ji is chicken, and dan is egg. So jidantang is egg, and tang is soup. So jidantang is just egg soup. It's like egg drop soup. Um, has kind of bits of egg in it. It's just kind of it's like a soup with cilantro, and it's basically a broth with cilantro and egg. It's been dropped into it. This is a very common, and it has some seaweed in it as well. This is a very common breakfast food. Um, it's usually a really salty broth, um, similar to like a Japanese dashi kind of broth, um, but a little less, I guess, umami flavor and more just salt flavor. It's a very salty. Just get your salt in for the day. And then they've just dropped in. Let me put that on camera. Then they've just dropped in some egg. Um, with just pieces of like nori seaweed mixed in with the soup. This is very hot. It's a little hard to eat. I might wait on that a little while. But This is good temperature. Mm. Like I said, I've never ordered from this particular restaurant before. But, this isn't a super common kind of food in China, but donkey meat is reasonably common. It's still a little unusual. I would say it's similar to having goat meat in America. Um, People have it, but it's not the most common meat. The most common meat here is pork and chicken, and then I would say like lamb and beef are behind that. But lamb is very common here, much more so than in America. Um, but this restaurant that I ordered from is specifically, well, the donkey meat's not very common in just a regular restaurant. Usually, you have to go to a restaurant that specializes in donkey meat, and so they'll have a whole bunch of different options. Like this place has various donkey meat soup and dumplings and wontons and just like stir fried meat type dishes, cold meat salad kind of things. Um, but it's all using donkey meat, and that's a pretty. It's a fairly common type of restaurant here. It's not the most common, but it's fairly common. The soup is very good, like breakfast, especially if you're a little hungover. I'm not hungover today, but in general, you need salt water. It's the main thing you need to drink, and this is basically just salt water with some egg in it, um, and a bit of cilantro for seasoning. This is very much a breakfast um, thing, like most little breakfast shops that serve like bowls of like steamed buns and other things like that will have this kind of soup. It's a very common breakfast food. This sort of meat sandwich thing, this could be a breakfast food, it could be a lunch food. This is not as associated with a time of day. But donkey meat has a very rich flavor. It trying to think of the best way to describe it. Kind of the fat from the meat more so than pork or beef or things like those. It kind of coats your tongue when you eat it, and so you just taste it all over your tongue. Um, and has a very rich flavor. Um, Maybe similar to braised beef, um, but uh, it has its own unique flavor. It's hard to describe, but it's quite good. I quite like it. Um, this is probably my favorite way to eat it. That is a very common. They make little. This one's a rectangular shape, or like little round ones that are basically sandwich buns, and then they fill them with the meat. This style of dish is typically called rojiamo, which is in the West often in English often called Chinese hamburger. Um, but it just means meat between bread. um, Raw again is like roe is meat, any kind of meat really. But typically in the dish rojamo, it's pork, but you can have it with any kind of meat. And then jia just means pressed between two things, so like between something. And mo means a type of bread, so the type of bread that it's usually on. This is a slightly different kind of bread, um, which sometimes might be called a shaobing. Um, and so this one is called huoshao, which is fire cooked bread. um, that's why it's got the crispy outside. Um, I also got one more thing, which is not uncommon in the West, but this specific way of having it is slightly uncommon, and that's just some peanuts. These are the typical way to make peanuts in China is oil roasting them in a wok with some salt. Ooh, and these are fresh. Well, those are really hot. Um, so when they're fresh, they're a little softer. They don't have quite as much of the crunch. When they cool off, they'll have more crunch. Um, this is something I often order as part of a meal, but I only eat a few handfuls of the nuts during the meal, and then you can just let it sit and cool off, and then you have nuts to have as a snack later. Um, they're just typical peanuts, and then they're not the same variety that we have in. I'm from Virginia. And we have Virginia peanuts. I think these are Spanish Runner. I'm not 100% certain of the variety that they use of peanuts. Um, I believe it's Spanish Runner peanuts, but it might be another one. They're slightly smaller. Each nut is slightly smaller, and they have a redder coat on the outside, the little skin. And I believe they're naturally a little more oily than the Virginia style that I grew up with. Um, they do have the Virginia style peanuts. Um, that variety of peanuts, um, the bigger, longer nuts that are have a whiter coating, a whiter skin. Um, those are often used for dry roasting here. These ones are oil roasted. Uh, but they have you can get they often do them with dry roast them with pepper, with Sichuan pepper, um, and you have like spicy peanuts. um, Not sure I really have anything else to say about this. I don't know, like I to me it's not really interesting watching people eat, so like I don't really see the entertainment value of someone eating, but I can I can understand the value of like explaining the food. So that's kind of what I was doing. Um, but well, I'll take a few more bites. Think about if there's anything else I can share about this food. This is a pretty common, some kind of a little sandwich thing, and with like either meat or veggies or something inside of it, um, and a soup. It's a pretty common um, breakfast thing here for people who are buying breakfast. Mm. This isn't as common of a breakfast if you were making it at home, but I don't make a lot of food at home. I mostly buy my food, and the the most famous one is what's called baozi, which is the steamed buns. Like they're a white steamed bun, and they have some kind of filling inside of them. That's probably the most famous breakfast Chinese breakfast food. Um, and then some kind of a soup, either a soup or a porridge. Um, this this is probably my favorite breakfast soup. They have this egg, the jirantang. Um, but you can also get the very other kinds of soups or porridges and things, rice porridge, things like that. Um, and yeah, I don't think this is the most common breakfast for people to have if you're at home. Um, at home, it's more common to either just make a dish or have like a normal like rice and some kind of meat or something. Mm. Or perhaps even actually lots of Western breakfast things like toast are quite popular nowadays too. Um, but this is a very common kind of in small breakfast stalls, not like a restaurant breakfast, but like a little like a stall that you just stop in and get some quick breakfast, like a cheap buying it out kind of option. Um, Not this thing particularly. The donkey meat is a little unusual here. Um, but like there's at least two or three donkey meat restaurants within easy distance from my house, like easy delivery distance from my house. Um, so it's not that unusual, but it's not the most common thing. So I think I'm gonna wrap it up. That's about all I had to say about this. I was just testing out if this kind of thing would be any good. Um, we'll see.